Hey, hello, how are you? And good morning, metalheads of the internet. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, we are talking about the latest full-length studio album from Cryptopsy, entitled An Insatiable Violence. This is the 9th full-length studio album from this iconic French-Canadian technical and brutal death metal crew, and I truly do mean iconic. Technical and brutal death metal would arguably not be where they are today without the contributions of Cryptopsy, and specifically without the contributions of early records like Blasphemy Made Flesh and None So Vile. Well over 30 years later, those records are still cram-packed with some of the most visceral, nasty, punishing, demented drums and guitars and vocals that you may hear on any kind of death metal record ever whatsoever. They have held up extremely well. Other Cryptopsy albums and eras, however, not so much. I love Cryptopsy, but I will happily concede, as would Cryptopsy, that, you know, They've had a bit of a rough track record, you know? Things have been pretty up and down and inconsistent over the years. But you know what? None of that matters right now, because this specific lineup, version, incarnation of Cryptopsy has been firing on all cylinders as of late. Take 2023's Asgamora Burns, for example. There was a lot riding on this album. It was their first major full-length studio album in well over a decade, and it delivered everything that Cryptopsy fans wanted and needed from Cryptopsy. It was big, bold, tight, groovy, incredibly brutal, and incredibly well polished all at the same time. It was a very successful record for Cryptopsy. It brought them a renewed sense of fame and popularity. They won a Juno Award, which is better than a Grammy Award because A, it's Canadian, and B, because the Junos actually pay attention to metal and heavy music. They don't just give awards to Metallica every year, unlike the Grammys. And now, Cryptopsy very wisely seek to build on the impact and momentum of Asgamora Burns. They seek to strike the iron while it is still hot with this brand new album, An Insatiable Violence. And guess what? If you loved Asgamora Burns, and if you love where Cryptopsy is right now, there is literally no reason whatsoever not to also love An Insatiable Violence. It is absolutely, and intentionally so, a continuation of everything that Cryptopsy did so well and so right on Asgamora Burns. With at least a few little twists and turns, to be fair. Like, I do feel like this is a groovier record in some parts, with some more dynamic, varied riffage. And, you know, lyrically, I do feel like this thing is a little bit more poignant and timely as well. Cryptopsy write a lot about social media and like online interactions and the toxic state of the internet and internet trends quite a bit on this album. As Cryptopsy's lead singer and lyricist Matt McGachy elaborates in a press release, "We're continuously trying to feed this algorithm of the machine while it's totally tearing us apart socially and psychologically. The Nimbus adoration is about mukbang, these Korean people that eat too much food on the internet. Piles and piles of food. A poor girl died on a live cam." My guy John over at Heavy Metal Philosophy actually talked to Matt on his channel. They dissected the lyrics and themes of the songs on this album together. I recommend you check that out if you want more insight as to what's going on, as to what Cryptopsy are thinking about. Simultaneously, the band is doing a lot to refine their craft, to tighten their sound, to smooth out all of the rough edges, resulting consistently in songs that are even more immediate and even more crushing. The aforementioned Nimbus adoration, for example, is filled with a variety of winding, grinding, churning grooves and battering riffs and rhythms and displays of pure, brutal, technical metal. An unrelenting and pummeling display through and through, even when it does slow down a little bit in the latter half. And in doing so, it builds this really ominous kind of tension and menacing kind of tone, which makes some of the extra groovy, meaty death metal riffage coming immediately after all the more satisfying and gnarly. Then there's the following cut, Until There's Nothing Left, which does a really good job at balancing some more meaty, gritty, groovy riffage with these like huge, epic, towering, bombastic displays of like battering, brutal, technical death metal. Then there's Fool's Last Acclaim, a big standout for me on the record. I love that like really warbly, groovy kind of like riff that's like all throughout the cut, the kind of like it sounds like a malfunctioning chainsaw in the best way possible. And with the super tight, stubborn percussion underneath it and all those little warbly bass licks and that super crunchy guitar tone, it's just flat out cool. Love seeing some more moody and ominous and menacing, almost kind of atmospheric moments and sections across the record as well. For instance, in The Art of Emptiness, we open with these very deep, low gutturals and these very like tense, heavy guitars transitioning into this big kind of death metal intro, and then eventually transitioning into the apocalyptic, tech, groovy, brutal death metal. The whole thing has a kind of like cattle decapitation-esque effect that I find very satisfying. And then Our Great Deception has this kind of like creepy, clumsy, kind of avant-garde jazz-esque section, something I might hear out of Fantifaxif or Imperial Triumphant, that leads the way into some very sinister, big, dark, epic, towering sections with some subtle melodic licks thrown in. It feels massive, it feels important, and it's super fucking cool. And honestly, it's just flat out cool to see former Cryptopsy lead singer Mike DeSalvo brought back into the fold on Embrace the Nihility. I always thought the Mike DeSalvo era of Cryptopsy, Whisper Supremacy, and Then You'll Beg was pretty overhated. I've always liked him. He's a good friend of the Metal Meltdown. We had him on the channel way back in the day. How you doing, Mike? Nice to see you here with Cryptopsy again. Though with respect to Mike, and honestly with respect to everyone who has ever been a vocalist in Cryptopsy, Matt McGachy is the star of the show here. This is the best vocally he's ever sounded on anything ever. His false chord screams and his super deep low menacing gutturals, like all of it. He sounds awesome across the board. As does everything else, everyone else. Like Flo on drums, some of the tightest, most technical, most precise percussion we've heard out of him in a long time. Christian Donaldson killing it on guitars and production. Olivier Pinard killing it with some like slick bass licks and some crushing, slimy, earthy, rumbling parts as well. This is a very solid, very strong, very enthusiastic 4 out of 5 for me. Cryptopsy made another great record. Arguably a little bit better than Asgamora Burns, in my opinion. Like, I'm just really fucking with this thing. And I feel like for the most part, your average Cryptopsy fan, your average death metal, tech death, brutal death metal fan will also fuck with this thing as well. I really can't think of much of a reason not to fuck with this thing unless you just straight up do not like Cryptopsy or you straight up do not like this specific type of death metal. It's hard to really say how long this renewed fame, success, and popularity will last. It's hard to say how much longer Cryptopsy will be inspired to just crank out nasty, gnarly death metal records. But for as long as it's going on, I'm happy. I'm good. I have no reason to believe whatsoever at the current moment that the next Cryptopsy album in 2 or 3 years won't also be an absolute certified fucking banger. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing Cryptopsy experiment a little bit on future records. I wouldn't mind seeing them play around with different spices and ingredients and flavors, but you know what? If they just want to become like a Cannibal Corpse-esque band and just crank out a badass, consistent death metal record every couple years or so, honestly, that's fine. You've earned it. You've got nothing to prove at this fucking point. Those are just my 2 cents. Do with that information whatever you will, Cryptopsy. Irregardless of whether or not you have something to prove, you've proven that you still matter and you're still more than capable of kicking out some kick-ass fucking records. 4 out of 5. Great. Can't wait to see y'all get another Juno. I can see it. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be, contrary to very popular belief. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown immediately. Boom, press this button to subscribe. Boom, more videos here. Join us on Discord. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.